have
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Command's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
A blessed, pleasant, truly thankful Thursdays. Welcome to our Talk Today edition. It's June the 1st, and according to the calendars we've assigned, it is the start of the hurricane season. And I must say publicly, through Mr. Simon Boxall, every year for the last 1,000, he's facilitated this discussion. If you see someone in the studio, you think, yeah, it must be 1,000 years old. Not looking at Miss Paulinda at all. So we're going to welcome you, be a part of the discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thanks so much. And I think as you have been a part of our discussions, and today in particular, like we have for many June 1st, every year, I joked and said for the last century, maybe the last millennia, it's always good to know that we have people who are not just experts in their areas, who have significant experience, but have a true sense of empathy and compassion and want to serve diligently for a community. So as much as I will try to make it as light and lively as possible, it's a very informative and sobering discussion as we talk about our plans and preparations and being safe, and not just during hurricane season, but for any potential disaster. Well, we always look around our table at a phenomenal panelists that we have, and today, for every segment, no different. But with a great deference, to the fine ladies, would you allow me to start, with the shining example of Mr. J.S. Wilson. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Uncle Dwayne. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. Man, that blue looks good on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now that country song is blue not your color? No, boo. Blue is your color. May I say God's richest blessings to you, man.
Thank you.
And your continued service and the example you follow with the team we have here. So, hurricane season for many of us can be a time when they become a bit even more apprehensive and anxious. One of my uncles, he knows, this is going to happen. It may or may not be anything significant, but he always prepared, weekly, did a little bit. Only to realize that was something that they all did because that's where they grew up. As I come here and do this show, that's what we're telling people to do. Take away a little bit of planning now, takes away a lot of anxiety later on. You don't have to rush and congest the supermarket and put yourself in a state. But we hear it. How many of us heed that sort of guidance?
Yeah, very true.
As we have our discussions, you start us off. Again, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the persons in the room. Good afternoon to those viewing and listening to us. My name is Jace Wilson. I am the cluster manager for the Human Concerns Cluster. And you'll start to hear some of these things about cluster and what does that mean. We form a part of your National Emergency Operations Center. The individuals in the room form the part of Human Concerns. So a part of Human Concerns, we have medical relief and medical response. We have voluntary agencies. As we see, we have direct Director Jondo here with us, who forms a significant part of that voluntary agencies with the Red Cross in particular, but we have many other agencies out there. We have shelter operations, and we have various other ones within the cluster that we have. So that's the reason why we're here today, just to continue to guide and assist persons with their preparedness throughout the hurricane season. Believe it or not, many persons in the room, we've thought about hurricane preparedness from February or even from January. So this is something that we continually think about. So today is the first day of hurricane season, so we just want to remind the listening public and the viewing public, please be mindful of not only the weather, but all of the advice, the communication that is sent out via the approved government platforms, and to continually be aware of what is being posted on the government Facebook page and what is also posted on Hazard Management Cayman Islands, the Be Prepared.
And I'm very grateful that over the years to see, the so-called social media now. Many will realize that I'm not a big fan, but the increasing sense of respect and responsibility the wider communities having relative to information that we're sharing. I'm also mindful that the official sources have not only been timely and informative, but in a way that allows us to respond appropriately. I say that to share that as the community becomes more knowledgeable, more proactive, we're seeing the safety, but we're also seeing the strength in the community. Ms. Paulinda, from your perspective, the individuals here have their own lives, whether it's you as Dr. DCFS or whether we represent health services, but we also have our personal lives, and yet those interconnect in a way that we're making our contributions in such a way that it strengthens the community's resolve, resilience, and a response. So help us to see how that plays into our preparations, our plans, and then in the aftermath of some natural disaster, where we go from there.
Good afternoon,
Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. There you go, man. Doesn't that roll off your lips so nicely?
And the listening public, as Mr. Chair did indicate, one of the key things as we enter our hurricane season is be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. As I sit on the shelter operations team, our responsibility is ensuring that our shelters are ready whenever we have to activate, and that our team, our volunteers of shelter managers and assistant managers and other staff are ready and available to heed the call when we are required to activate. We have shelters in each district. Some districts have more than one. From an HMCI perspective, I know that they're constantly looking at onboarding more shelters each year to increase the capacity. As we all know, the Cayman Islands population continues to grow, and we need to ensure that we are able to cater to a good percentage of persons in the event that we have to open our shelters. But back to being prepared. One of the key messages as we deliver our shelter manager trainings is before you can help someone else, you need to ensure that your family and your own personal space is prepared for any pending disaster, i.e. hurricane season. So before looking to volunteer or to be in the shelter, you should have those key items to be able to sustain yourself whilst we're locked down in the event of a hurricane. And of course, throughout the hurricane season, with the various clusters on the NEOC and HMCI, I'm sure people will be on continually delivering that message. What does preparedness look like? I think one of the key things about preparedness is ensuring that you have a family plan and that everybody knows that family plan. The other thing that we learned, and again we draw reference on what we know, which was Hurricane Ivan. During Hurricane Ivan, comms were lost. Afterwards, it was a difficulty in terms of family, friends overseas trying to locate their family members or friends because they weren't sure the news media was presenting a certain picture in Cayman.
The international news media.
Yes. One of the key things that we stress now is the plan should not only be local, but the plan should also include your family and friends overseas as to how they can contact you or get information. Some of the basic things, again, is going into a shelter that you have basic food items that can keep you, particularly water, for at least 3 days. Although there are some resources within the shelter, we encourage families to bring their own. Again, safety in the shelter is a priority. As Mr. Chair said, the cluster includes other entities who support the shelters, which would include HSA, police, public works, environmental health. Those are key players to ensuring a safe environment in the shelter. So we do have what we call emergency medical shelters, and those shelters, and my learned colleague from HSA will speak a bit more on that, are EMCs support persons who will require some level of medical need. I know particularly when we have elderly persons who are shelterees, we promote that they go to those types of shelters.
And this is where I'm hopeful that as the listening public engages, they don't say, oh, June 1st, yep, predictable, we have this discussion every year. Sometimes important things are worth repeating. And so we'll take our break. When we come back, we'll have a discussion, pick up on what the chair said as well as, Ms. Paulinda, and appreciate the impact that we have on what's around us, but what also that impact has on us. All right, we're going to pause and take a break and invite people to be prepared. Maybe you can skip, of course, be prepared, be prepared. There's a song there somewhere. Join us after the break.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Quitting smoking isn't easy, but it's absolutely possible. Here's how you can do it. 1. Decide you want to quit. 2. Get the help you need. And 3. Follow through. We're here to help you on your journey to kick the habit. Call the Public Health Department on 244-2889 to register for the next course beginning on May 31st. This message is brought to you by the Public Health Department in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks to to HMCA, but all of the facility agencies for allowing us to be able to have this annual discussion at the commencement of hurricane season. Remind us, as Ms. Paulinda Mendoza-Williams shared, be prepared. We were practicing the course, but we'll get it by 3 o'clock. That's the plan. But in also getting people to understand the facts, I'm very, very grateful that we want to say thanks. We want to encourage their preparation and help them in that. And I gather that we have little parting gifts almost. So, Ms. Paulinda, through you, maybe we can invite that and see who gets what, when, and where, how.
So HMCI has done a raffle, and we have pulled the ticket. So we have a few winners, and I will name the first winner for this afternoon is a G Green. And HMCI, because the contact information is on this, so I'll just say G Green, and HMCI will contact each winner as we announce them.
All right, so a few more and you hear bingo, but you know, and I got a G7, but that's a different thing. Maybe sometimes we do things to incentivize people. Maybe we do things to spark people's sort of understanding. Hey, you know, this is a starter pack. You know, this is sort of your housewarming gift when you move into a new place. This is your family recipe. But Ms. Natalie, from that perspective, though, sometimes we don't even know, you know, what is happening. Not only because we're new to the region and new to the island, but we've always had someone do it for us, and now adulting apparently becomes us because we're no longer, you know, 4. We're 44. Ms. Paulinda was referencing the collaborative approach of all agencies, and as I was listening to her, recognizing that even though many individuals who participate are public servants, but their interests go beyond the scope of their work. From the HSA's perspective, take us to where we are, whether it's the emergency medical shelters, whether it's the idea of, God forbid, there is some natural disaster that requires us to utilize the health services in a much more robust way, perhaps.
Definitely. Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling, and good afternoon, radio listeners. My name is Natalie Cobb, and I'm here representing the Health Services Authority. So Ms. Paulinda did allude to the emergency medical centers, and we do have those. Actually, we have 9 of those on island, and if you do allow me, I'll name them out for those who are new to the island. We have Prospect Primary School, Sir John A. Comber Primary School, Assembly Hall, William Allen McLaughlin Civic Center, Frederick Ebanks Civic Center, Clifton Hunter High School Gymnasium, Bordentown Primary School, Multipurpose Hall, Savannah Primary School, Assembly Hall, Aston Roti Center, and that's in Cayman Brac, and the Public Works Department in Little Cayman. And so our emergency centers, they are directed, so based on the guidance of the HMCI, we have, it's a multi-purpose, as she alluded to, so we have physicians and we have nurses, we have midwife, we have public health staff in it. We also have some mental health staff, and Ms. Dymna will speak on that later today. The emergency medical centers, they are directed for people with chronic illnesses. And what do we talk about? So persons who are diabetic, hypertensive, asthmatic, people who are vulnerable, as well as, so those will come under anybody receiving chemotherapy or dialysis. They would be considered an ideal candidate for the emergency medical centers. When individuals are coming to these emergency medical centers, they need to ensure that they take their supplies. And what does that supplies mean? It's just regular readiness, your regular readiness that HMCI talks about, your package. In that package, it talks about your medical equipment as well. Your medical equipment, whether it's an oxygen cylinder, whether it's a BiPAP machine, whatever this is, you have to take them with you, as well as your medication supplies, right? Because the emergency medical center only give emergency medicine. So you take everything with you. In addition to your supplies, if there's a family member that have a caregiver at home, they have to come in with them to support them as well.
You know, in this, as I listen, you know, to Ms. Natalie, there's the idea that, as Ms. Paulinda was sharing earlier, the wellness, you know, the physical well-being, but the mental aspect. For some of us, in any space that we're confined, it doesn't matter how large the space, for some the smaller the worse. But just that knowledge of being confined, even though it's in your best interest, because what's raging outside isn't just a political meeting, but it's an impending storm, you get antsy. And we don't appreciate how that could affect you, but those around you. So having, you know, the mental health approach, could it provide safety for all?
Yeah. So in speaking about the general shelters, all of the shelters that have been trained through the shelter operations through Ms. Paulinda, we've had given them a very abridged education about psychological first aid and what to expect and what is normal and what you can do, and to understand that these are very difficult situations, and you're not, whilst the shelters are safe, but they're not homely per se. You're around a lot of people, it can be very discombobulating. So you need to be very careful as to when you go in there that you take things that ensure that environment is going to be as comfortable as you can possibly make it. Because as much as this happens every year, Dwayne, it doesn't lessen
the distress that it can have for some people, and the preparation and just the anxiety. But the better prepared we are, the better we are to handle it, because we can't change the hurricane season, but we can change how we look at these things. But I would say, just going then to piggyback onto the emergency medical shelters, that it's really important that if you are someone who does have a current diagnosis of a mental health illness, or you are someone who is not coping very well, that you are on meds, you're on treatment, if you're looking after an elderly person who has a neurocognitive disorder, it's not to say that they need to go to these shelters, but are their homes going to be safe? And how are they going to cope? And who else is going to be in that home? Because this is very distressing. Just the sheer noise and volume of rain and all the things that we can get can be very difficult for people to cope with. But we know that there will be strong emotions, but it's being able to recognise those, and sometimes those give us energy to better prepare, right? And to stand up and say, right, we can do this. We've done it every year. Many of us have done it every year. And, you know, there's many things that I'll speak about in respect to plans. But in regards to where we're at the minute and what you should be thinking about, you know, I urge all of you out there that, you know, if you are someone who is not feeling well mentally, if you're suffering emotionally, psychological, if you have a chronic and enduring mental health problem, if you're someone who is a family member with a diagnosis of dementia, you don't necessarily have to take them to a shelter, but please ensure that wherever they are is safe and that you have company, that everybody has company, because sometimes people aren't able to sleep. And who's going to manage individuals and assist with that?
And as I listen to you, you know, I'm hoping that our listeners are not only attentive, but that we're sharing it in a way that it resonates with them, but they can understand us clearly and see the respect that we're trying to convey. But it may not be the 36 hours as reported, you know, during Hurricane Evan, the storm. It may not be the days or weeks after in the recovery. This is ongoing, and that impact that we have on our community, but on the individual. Ms. Jondo, from the Red Cross's perspective, it could be an unfortunate circumstance where not only on, you know, in the Cayman Islands, you may have other sort of commitments regionally, because the storm, for instance, has ravaged the Caribbean region. Your resources then locally could be tapped to assist regionally.
Yes, actually, that's quite interesting because...
Oh, thank you.
Because during 2017, our other islands, I won't call them our sister islands, but the islands in the Eastern Caribbean were hit by both Hurricane Irma and Maria. And it was quite devastating because it was within a period of 10 days. So they had Irma, and they were just about to say, let's start, and they had no radio communication, no telephone. And then you have this other hurricane coming, Maria. They literally had to go the old-fashioned route and drive around the islands and say, there's another one coming. It's almost like, is that a joke? Thankfully, we haven't had that, but we need to be prepared for that because there is a possibility of this happening. But when you talk about supporting the other islands, the Red Cross has a container project. And in those containers, we have relief supplies for each district, including Cayman Brac, and we have a minimum supply in Little Cayman. But the whole idea of that are prepositioned stocks. So we work closely with HMCI and the CERT teams, and the CERT teams are community emergency response teams, and they're trained so that if some part of the island is cut off and we, the responders, cannot get there, the community people feel empowered. Open up the container and try and support the local community. And that's really something that we want to implore on everybody. The Red Cross has a training called Vulnerability and Capacity Assessment, helping people to really look at their vulnerabilities and say, you know what, how can we help each other? This whole thing of we're not going to do anything until the government comes cannot work. We really need each other to find out who the vulnerable people are in our community and remember them, because we need to help them first.
I'm glad you shared that, and I'll take responsibility for this. My understanding of my community is that we don't wait for the government. We are compliant, we're civil, we are there to help assist, but we help each other. And what we do, I think is one of the reasons on a personal level I'm such an ardent proponent, champion, and public advocate for the CERT teams, because the skills that the individuals learn are good for their individual lives, in their individual families, for their careers alone, but that collective skills within the community. To know who your neighbours are creates better safety, and connection to know that your neighbor is a nurse, a carpenter, a plumber, electrician, that even lawyers have benefit during hurricanes, you know. Brings us together, right? We do have a call online. If Miss Paulinda say yes, we'll take one. If she says no, we still take one. I'm just kidding. And we're asking our listeners to join us because, you know, part of what we're trying to achieve is, okay, the caller says no, wants to talk to OC, not me. That's Friday. You can talk to OC. No, the caller didn't say that. But we want our people to be informed. Mr. Chair, if I may ask, when I was thinking earlier, and Ms. Jondo's comments, we're here. We have family and friends who are next door in Cayman, in the region, in almost every corner of the globe. And sometimes they're watching international media, and the international media is reporting whatever it is that they have. And for many times we look at it and we go, "Ooh, what's happening? You know, it's low lying, everybody's gone in the panic." So to get us to be prepared in informing those people, hey, you know, something's happening, don't worry, we'll contact you, could help somewhat. From your cluster, and you're talking about, you know, the human aspect, does that play into any of the discussions and the decision making as to how we help people here to ensure that their families don't feel overly burdened with the concerns, you know, during the passage of some natural disaster like a hurricane?
Yes, that is a part of our decision making process and what we continue to work towards. Hazard management, they have provided a lot of training as it relates to how we think, how we operate, how we can actually conduct risk assessments versus the various different types of events that might happen. And again, we're thinking, yes, because today is hurricane season, but what if this were to be a man-made disaster? Okay, and I know that's something
There's a passage in the Legislative Assembly? No, just kidding.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, sorry. Ooh, that's a rough one.
Yeah.
But what if this were to be a man-made disaster? I know that these are things that we really and truly don't think about, but that is a part of the thought process. Again, we hope and pray that things like that never occur here, but we have to plan, we have to prepare for it. And a part of that plan and preparation, the communication will go out to not only emergency responders, but also the people within the community.
And although I was, you know, trying not to be somewhat jovial as we go to the call, you said it doesn't have to be a natural disaster. It could be something here. It could be localized to South Sound, right? But it will impact all three islands, and then by extension, the wider community in the country and the region because of the families. We're told now that a caller is online. Good afternoon. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling. Hello. Good afternoon. Okay, well, sometimes that may be a good sign. Maybe it isn't. We hope to connect to your callers if they wish and have a question. And we have the break to take, so maybe it's a good time. When we come back, we'll see where we take our listeners. Please rejoin us after the break.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. Become a member today. With 6 flexible life cycle funds, we help you plan for financial security in retirement. We keep our members informed with the plan's performance through quarterly fund fact sheets. We have an all-in expense ratio of 0.75%, over 16,000 members, and 337 million CI dollars in assets under management. If you would like to join or require further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. Become a member today.
now more than ever. Supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And if I might say to all of our, panelists throughout the discussions today, if they would allow me to say, thanks to Mr. Simon Boxall. He's, been able to facilitate this discussion every year. So to the chair, Mr. Jace, to Ms. Paulinda, Ms. Dymna, and Ms. Natalie, to you and Ms. Jondo, thanks for coming in and being a part of this segment. Ms. Paulinda, back to you, Mom. And guide us. Okay, let me set it up. When you find good people, you kind of defer to them because they guide you. If you're just joining us, not only are we talking about hurricane preparedness and the like, and the notion to be prepared, I think HMCI conducted a raffle. There are some wonderful prizes that may help us during the season. We drew one earlier. HMCI will contact G Green, who's maybe on the G7, bingo, for the other thing. Then we have another prize. I think this one is an all expense paid to, no, this isn't.
We wish. yeah, we would wish. The next winner is a Yannick Dawkins. So Yannick Dawkins, we're going to contact you from Hazard Management in regards to your prize that you won.
Okay. And if it's chocolate, you can share it. But these prizes, I think, are helpful for people to be able to understand that you can be incentivized and rewarded, but there's also a part that you play. And maybe you just need to be sort of like the kindling, kickstart, the fire under you to get the marshmallows roasted. But in all jest, in an attempt to be jovial, Ms. Paulinda, this is significant, how we take this and what we do for our own individual plans, our own individual family plans. We see the business community having their business continuity plans, but the government itself, as you reference, make the community safe, but the international community be aware, we're still here, or we need this, or this is what's what.
So rightfully, when it comes to planning for hurricane season or any sort of disaster, continuity of operations is quite key. And whilst we're sitting here as part of the Human Concerns Cluster, we're also responsible to ensure that our day-to-day business is able to continue in the aftermath or during any form of disaster. So we also plan to ensure that there is continuity during these times. I would also just like to share in terms of, we have categories of shelters. So we have Class A shelters and Class B shelters. And the Class A shelter is suitable for sheltering during the event, and the Class B shelter is suitable for sheltering post-event. Now, people don't really have to worry about that, but it's good information to know. And as I said earlier, with the emergency medical centers, when we are called to activate during hurricane season, or depending on any particular potential emergency situation, the Red Cross shelter is always the first to open. So we certainly give kudos to the Red Cross in supporting and opening their shelter first. I know that we've talked about man-made disasters, and I remember back in 2020 we had the earthquake, dump fires, then COVID.
Correct.
And then we had the Sahara dust coming. So during that first quarter of the year, there was a lot of movement in the NEOC and amongst the clusters, navigating how we address some of these events that presented to us. But also just to share with the listening public, just giving them a highlight of some of the larger shelters that we have. And we currently have the John Gray High School Gymnasium, and that can accommodate 1,150 shelterees. We have the University College of the Cayman Islands Hall, which is 500. Prospect Primary, which is also an EMC, is 1,135. We have in the West Bay area the Sir John E. Cumber Primary School. There are 2 sections to that, and the total, let's see if I can do my math really good right now, is 570 capacity, 135 in one section and 335 in the other section. And for the Eastern Districts, our Clifton Hunter High School is the largest capacity of 630. And as I said earlier, the government, along with HMCI, continue to try and locate spaces to continue to grow our sheltering capacity as populations increase. So again, just making sure that as messages go out during this period, that people know where their shelters are located. I don't know if I should say this on air, but again, some people prefer to go to other shelters outside of their district. There's nothing wrong with that, but also be mindful that you have shelters in your district. Particularly though, if there is need for the EMCs and one is not in your district, then that's something different. But try as best to stay within your district as opposed to going. And when the call is made for us to start planning to enter shelters, I cannot say this
strongly enough.
Yes, I can't. I mean, unless I put the billboard on my forehead, do not wait till the storm is at its height, the rain is coming down, and the roads are impassable, and then expect our other supporting agencies, particularly police, fire, ambulance regiment to come out and try and get you out of that situation. Because at this point, we have to think of those individuals, their safety so that they can then be able to, post-disaster, be able to give the service. So again, I can't strongly emphasize, if you're going to shelter, do not wait till the last minute.
Although, Ms. Paulinda, was very evident from what you shared, just for further edification, you talked about the Class A and the Class B shelters. It would be that during the passage of the, for example, the hurricane, your Class A shelters would be subscribed, and then after that, so would people be sheltered during the Class B, in the Class B during the passage?
So both categories will house during that time. So when we talk of post-event, those would more than likely be those that have a capacity to do a more long-term type of sheltering.
All right. And I guess this is where we in our community know and can even get involved. In particular, Ms. Jondo, start back with you. With a CERT team, the CERT may be an established team, but if you're in the community, you can, hey, who's on the CERT, be aware of it. Hey, I'm here, I am an extra pair of hands and ears, and I can help some capacity. Offer up your assistance as a member of that community to the wider community through the CERT.
No, absolutely. And when you think about the CERTs, sometimes we just say CERTs and forget that these are people who are volunteers. So I just want to say a shout out to all the volunteers, including the Red Cross volunteers who come out every single year, who leave their families and say, we're going to commit ourselves to the shelters. And I can see my colleague over there, that's Stuart Cruikshank. He's a disaster manager. He just finished a training on shelter management for our volunteers, because we send volunteers to the national shelters, and if nobody's there, we can also step up as shelter managers. But because ours is the first one to open, we make sure we train them. We had over 58 volunteers who have said, this season, I am going to leave my family and come out there. So it's really nice to hear that. And today we have our big hurricane meeting, where we really tell the volunteers, and we sort of divide them into different groups. Because if you think about it, you start off with shelters, and then post-disaster, there are just so many aspects of response. It could be relief distribution, there's logistics, there's even admin. You know, we tell you sometimes we need people to just type out things. So there's so many categories. So this is the day. So tonight we'll get the volunteers to sign up in their different categories, and it just makes the whole teamwork. People understand that they're part of a wider response, So again, shout out to the volunteers and shout out to the CERT teams, because when they come out, they make us proud and make our work very easy.
This is where there's such strength in the community, Ms. Paulinda.
Yeah, I just want to also reiterate what Jondo said about the Red Cross shelter volunteers, but also for our other partners, our local individuals that have come out. This year we've had over 200 persons attend our disaster preparedness training, which included some of the Red Cross volunteers as well. So again, a big shout out to persons who have signed up to give back to the community in the event that we have to activate during the hurricane season or any other time of the year. It takes quite a bit of a big commitment for them to really leave their families and come into the shelters, because some of them, not all of them, will have their family come in there. And that is something that, again, when we talk about mental health, you're taking on a role, and knowing that your family is not with you, you don't know what's happening. You've put plans in place, but still there's that level of anxiety, and you're dealing with other families. So big kudos to all of the volunteers. And I must say, over the years, the numbers do not decrease. They continue to increase, and it shows that people are committed to ensuring that we are resilient during and after any form of disaster, and we're here to help each other.
And again, I mean, I commend our community. We see the charitable nature in terms of our giving, but we also see the civic mindedness of the community spirit. So, Ms. Natalie, as Ms. Jondo was sharing, these are individuals who in their regular lives, whether it's your team at HSA, who have your everyday and day-to-day jobs, but you're also going above that to be a part of the community, not unlike the person who volunteers for Lions or some of the service on the PTA, except lives are at stake in this instance during the storm, but also after. What do you say to the wider community when we're looking at volunteering, when we're looking at complementing the resources either through HSA or through any of the other agencies? How do we get involved? How do we help?
Okay, there's several avenues that you can go through to give assistance as needed. As you said, you can go through the Red Cross. But for us here at HSA, we use our own staff and compliments to our staff. We are civil servants, so we go above and beyond at all times. We are never closed. Right through the hurricane, we're still giving our service at all times. So we ensure that we provide the information out there. Again, if there is need for volunteers, I must mention too that we have our own team within HSA. So we don't work in isolation. We work alongside Doctors Hospital. We work alongside Health City Cayman Islands. We have Red Cross. So it's a multidisciplinary approach that makes up our emergency support team, and we too have our meeting this evening coming, and we'll sit and we just talk about the plans that each department have and how well they can support us if needs be. And I also mentioned that Cayman Islands Medical and Dental Society, we have volunteer doctors within that group that we reach out to before the start of the hurricane season, and we say, hey, how best can you support us if we need to, and they'll send us their list, they'll send us their speciality, what area they're focused in, and we appreciate that. So volunteerism it's a humanitarian approach.
Indeed.
All right.
Well, as we go into our break, we'll invite you to rejoin us. Our panelists currently will remain with us until 1:15, and then we'll change the segment. But we have a parting gift for them, all right? So stay tuned for Talk Today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
It's June 1st, the start of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, which goes from June 1st to November 30th. The latest predictions from NOAA suggest a 40% chance of a near normal season. You can read more at nhc.noaa.gov. In international news, The Russian region of Belgorod has once again come under attack from across the Ukrainian border, with at least 8 people reportedly hurt in shelling. Russia's defense ministry has said it claimed it thwarted other attempts by Ukraine to invade the region. Kyiv has not commented on the allegations, but has denied involvement in previous attacks across the border. The latest strikes come more than a week after one of the most significant cross-border raids since the war began. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky took his quest for more arms and support to a sprawling summit of some 50 European leaders in Moldova on Thursday, becoming the focal point of an event that seeks to quell regional conflicts and shore up unity in the face of Russia's war. The 27-nation EU wants to use the summit to reach out to many Eastern European countries that spent decades either within the Soviet Union or under its immediate sphere of influence, and to bolster the continent's unified response to Russian aggression. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
When you have a sports or fitness-related injury, trust the expertise of the HSA Sports and Exercise Medicine Clinic to get you back in the game. Our internationally trained and certified physicians specialize in sports traumatology, sports medicine, pain management, and orthopedic surgery. For treatment of common injuries such as tendonitis, arthritis, tennis elbow, rotator cuff, or knee tears, schedule a consultation with the Sports and Exercise Medicine Clinic at Smith Road Medical Center by calling 949-8600 or visit hsa.ky for more information.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Charles Alexander Barnes. Charlie Barnes was the son of Jack and Ellen Barnes of St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. He worked on the Panama Canal in the 1930s driving a dump truck. In the late 1930s or early 40s, he came to Cayman from Honduras and started the island's first bakery on Shedden Road next to the Barclays Bank. During World War II, he supplied the U.S. Navy base and visiting warships with bread. He married the former Orma Macfield, with whom he had 6 children. In 1946, he introduced the first bus to Cayman and used it to transport church members to Sunday school and children to school, as well as to carry people to social events such as dances. He was proud of having cooked for the Duke of Edinburgh when he visited Cayman in the 1960s. Charlie was best known, however, for his popular Buttonwood Club on Shedden Road, a recreational center where people of all ages convened socially.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
In order to facilitate pipeline improvement works in the area, Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise motorists and other road users that the northbound lane of Bobby Thompson Way between Linford Pearson Highway and Smiths Road will be closed to vehicular traffic on Sunday, June 4th from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. During this time, local access only to residences in the area will be available, and flagmen will be on hand to direct local access traffic. Traffic signs will be posted in the general vicinity, and all motorists are asked to drive with caution to ensure their own safety as well as that of the Water Authority staff. The Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of the motoring public and apologizes for any inconvenience this may cause.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to for this opportunity to not just celebrate with our team. I hear it, Miss Susan. I hear it. There you go. But also to remind us that we have a wonderful community of truly competent, committed citizens who come together to ensure that we are not just safe and secure during impending disasters, but we're also responsive. So to Paulinda, Mendoza-Williams, Mr. J.S. Williams, Nurse Dymna together, with Jondo with the Red Cross. And HSA is ably represented not only by Mr. J.S. but Miss Natalie. Miss Paulinda, I know we want to give you some more to incentivize and to reward people, but also this segment will end in about 10 minutes. So Nurse Dymna, we'll come to you in a second.
So final words again. Be prepared, ensure that you have a family emergency plan as well as an emergency plan for your family overseas, so they'll know how to contact you. And again, please pay attention to all of the PSAs that certainly will ramp up over the next couple of weeks going forward, to ensure that in the event of a storm, hurricane, we know which shelters we are going to shelter to, or if we are at home, again, that our space is prepared and safe to do so.
Okay. And as I asked Nurse Dymna and Ms. Natalie for some other contributions, Mr. Wilson, if I may ask you, some of us, we have, I don't want to call them pets, because they're an extension, they're actually an integrated part of the family.
Family, correct.
And increasingly it's challenging sometimes to take, your loved one some places. Are shelters for pets and pets for shelters? I mean, does that work?
So we do have two pet shelters, John Gray and Clifton Hunter.
Okay. And are there limitations on the pet? I mean, can I bring my iguana, my pet rock? Is it limited to the type of dog that I have?
Yeah, just the two.
We're talking just
cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
Yeah, cats and dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not trying to be a joke, but there's some of us who have to appreciate that,
Ivan, we remember the horse coming.
Yeah. And to your point, that's why I deferred that one to Miss Paulinda, because that has been a huge concern for persons in the community. We have, as of the last census, 70,000 plus persons who now live in Cayman. And believe it or not, many persons within the communities, they are pet lovers. And as you said, they're integrated into their family. So that was something that we're currently looking at to actually see if we can now expand those shelters so that we can possibly accommodate more pets in the shelter areas. But as Ms. Paulinda said, it's a constant dialogue, constant communication between us and the community so that we can grow our shelter locations so that we can potentially open up for things such as pets into the shelters.
Mr. Bess, I invite you to share from you, maybe if it's appropriate, I'd love you to, but as I listen to Mr. Jason and Ms. Paulinda, some of us, I think the word is kind of phobia, we may have that fear of that dog, and as much as we want to ensure as the pet owner the dog is properly housed somewhere, the other occupants could have a bit of
I think we need to make it clear that whilst these are pet shelters, they're not mixed with the human.
Yeah, correct.
So they're in a particular area of those shelters, and they must have cages, they must have adequate food and water with them, and some toys, and sometimes a blanket or something to throw it over the cage, because a lot of, my dog is a nervous wreck when it comes to thunder and lightning, so it's rough. So, but I'd really like to speak about some of the special populations that we need to be mindful of. So we need to think about our children, right? And yes, it's great today to start talking about the hurricane, what we're going to do, but start preparing, start planning, start integrating it into your everyday's activity. If we have to go to a shelter, or if we have to go and stay with another family member, what are we going to take with us? Don't forget, don't rely on electronics, and this is for adults as well, because batteries will die, things will cut out. Have an old-time radio with you. It's a great source of entertainment and distraction in the darkest hours, but it's a reliable source of information. On that note, I also have some radios, so if there's anybody out there in the community that cannot afford to buy a radio, and we've done this before, and is in need of one, please reach out to me. I have radios which I can give you. I also want to remind people about the homeless people in our community. If you know someone that is living rough and doesn't have somewhere to stay, please encourage them to go into a shelter. Another group that we need to be aware of is that people are born and people die. So we have, people in our community that have lost spouses, lost partners, lost children. They may have been living with those individuals. That person out of their home is going to be a huge shift, a big change in their plan. And ultimately, I don't think that anybody who's living on their own should go through a hurricane by themselves, even the strongest of individuals, simply because you never know what is going to happen. Right, and even though you might have the strongest house, but you don't know, our own health can change in a heartbeat. You do need to have support. For new people to the island, for people that are from far, going back to the phone numbers, write the phone numbers down. Have a written list of phone numbers. And particularly if you're someone who's just arrived, ensure that you have a contacts here on the island. Give them your next of kin. Share that sort of information, because again, phone lines will go down. Any number can play, right? But we just need to be very mindful. We need to be kind. We need to be considerate. There will be some anxiety. There will be some fears. But as I said earlier, sometimes these fears can generate energy that enables us to get through it. This has a timeline, right? Hurricane season is 5 months long, but it does have a timeline. But if we have to go into a storm or go into a situation where we have to hunker down, the other thing I want you to think about is anybody who is in a relationship that is perhaps volatile, that is aggressive, that is violent. It's not just about surviving the storm, right? It's about the aftermath when you may be trapped, when people are, walking a very fine line and, nerves are a bit frayed. Do you want to be in that position? Do you want to be with that individual? So please, again, I asked you to make a plan. For parents, for people that have children and the families are separated, the children are living apart, don't leave it to the last minute to have a conversation with mummy or daddy to say, I'm taking the kids. No, I'm taking them. These are things that you need to discuss as a family, right? And get these things in place. The more we prepare, the more we think about a periphery level, the better we are to cope with things. So, and the final thing is, we have 1 minute, right? The final thing and the most important is, do not forget K-Mind, the Cayman Islands Mental Health Helpline, which is still running. It will be running during the course of an event that will not stop. Our hours at the minute are 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. In the event of an activation, we are ongoing 24/7. Any concerns, any fears, any worries, you need some support, please call us. But we are K-Mind. Thank you. Okay.
And we do have a request for one of your radios.
Yes.
So I will pass it along.
Okay.
For you. And,
thank you.
I was just thinking, despite the time, I look at Miss Natalie and I think, oh, christen her Heather. She looks like Heather to me. Miss Natalie.
All right, great. So just to wrap up from the Health Services Authority, just a reminder regarding medication from pharmacy. So we just want to tell our listeners and our patients that if you require, it's hurricane season, so you still go ahead and get your regular monthly supply. And in addition to that, you also get at least 2 weeks supply. So this extra 2 week supplies that you're getting, you're not going to take it right away. You have it stored in a Ziploc container, plastic proof container. So it's waterproof container, so it's properly stored. So you'll use that only after the event of a hurricane, right? So you will not use that. You keep using your regular monthly supply. In addition to that, we're talking up to our expecting mothers. So those who are in their third trimester, if there's a tropical storm or hurricane threat, you need to reach out to your physician and find out what is the plan. Do you need to come into the shelter or do you need to come into the hospital itself? So you would have to make follow-up with that. And despite the disaster that has happened, emergencies still happen. So we're asking patients to still look through their travel documents, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's valid, and if you need any support with that, you make sure you reach out to the Cayman Islands Passport Office. For our vulnerable patients, those who are on treatment for chemotherapy or hemodialysis patients, we ask you to reach out to the various departments or reach out to the Cayman Islands Health Services Authority and we will direct you accordingly. Any concerns, any questions, we are here at the Health Services Authority because you know that we are committed to caring for you, the public. So we are ready and we are also prepared and we anticipate that we'll have an uneventful hurricane season.
Amen to that. 30 seconds, Mrs. Jondo, if you want to share.
We've talked about preparedness, and it becomes one of those words where we hear preparedness. But I think that's basically what it is. If we prepare as a community, then the response becomes easier for all of us. So I'll just say, let's get prepared.
See, another course now. Be prepared. Mr. Chair, sir, we leave it. Closing thoughts to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Uncle Dwayne. And thank you very much to the listening public and the viewing public for tuning in today to talk today. First and foremost, I would like to say, Uncle Dwayne, as you can see, I have a fantastic team.
Yes, sir.
Surrounding me. They really and truly make it easier for me. But I would like to say a huge thank you to the outgoing chair. Because she has been literally the rock for many, many years, believe it or not. I'm not going to say how many, because I know you passed a comment about age, and you know, my mom told me that that's not nice. But I want to say a huge thank you to the team that is here, and we have a few persons who are unfortunately not able to make it today. But as Ms. Paulinda said, we just want to reiterate to the public, please be prepared. Be prepared. Be prepared, and stay tuned for all of the local media as it relates to GIS, what hazard management posts and sends out via their Facebook page or just their internet page, just so that they're familiar and up to date with the current standings as it relates to disasters and disaster preparedness.
And the app.
And the HMCI, thank you. See, this is why I told you, a fantastic team. Please go on to your app store, whether it's you go to the iTunes store or iPhone store, or iTunes, correct? Or the Amazon Play Store, and you can download the hazard management app. And that also provides you real-time feedback and information from your mobile device.
Awesome. This is the apps you want to get, right?
Yes.
All right, so as we go into the break for our next segment, we have one more winner. Should I announce it, Ms. Paulinda?
Sure.
And as my eyes... Sir?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Fitzroy Kelly?
There we go. That's right. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, Fitzroy Kelly. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Very good. That's what I was saying. Fitzroy Kelly.
All right, so the two previous winners together with Mr. Kelly will be contacted by HMCI. So, by having a unison on 3, say be prepared. All right, 1, 2, 3. Be prepared.
Preparation.
Join us right after the break for our next segment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Health behaviours and lifestyle choices such as diet and smoking can be risk factors for non-communicable diseases. The STEPS 2023 National Health Survey will allow the Ministry of Health and Wellness to gather important data on the health of the nation, including these risk factors. This information will inform our plans for the health needs of Cayman's residents, allowing us to better serve our population. Learn more by logging on to www.gov.ky/steps.
Cayman Art Week brings you 5 days of art events and exhibitions from Tuesday the 30th of May to Saturday the 3rd of June, all free and open to the public. Visit galleries and studios anytime throughout the week or hop on one of the buses running guided tours around a different district each night. Don't miss this chance to explore Cayman's local art scene. Meet some of the artists or buy some art of your own. Check out what's happening each day, where the party's at, and how to catch a bus tour by visiting CaymanArtWeek.com.
Always ensure that food preparation utensils are washed with a strong detergent and rinsed in hot water in the event that they have made contact with flood water. Boil silverware for 10 minutes and immerse glass, porcelain, china, and plastic items in a solution of hot water and 10% chlorine bleach before use.
For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at www.gov.ky/DEH.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new boneless hot sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh. CUC is committed to cleaner energy for Grand Cayman. Their strategy is aligned with the future needs of our country. The CUC team is working to create a sustainable energy future for us all. Using a mix of rooftop and utility-scale solar, their goal is to bring electricity costs down without compromising network safety or reliability. CUC has a plan, and they are ready. Follow their journey at www.roadstorenewables.ky to learn more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And as much as we would like, the repetition of some of this information, we tried in an attempt to make it a little lighthearted, but it's still very sobering, very serious, and we want you to be prepared, because they say to be forewarned is to be forearmed. So as you are invited now to join us for another segment, we have Mr. Simon Boxall, we have Mr. Richard Simms, and together with Robert Tatum. Each of us can share. I'm going to do my best not only to contribute in a way that helps us to pay attention, but if it's okay with you, to listen intently, so that I learn, I be reminded, and perhaps may even be helpful. But you never can tell you. Mr. Boxall, good afternoon, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks again, Sterling. So, beginning of the hurricane season, here we are.
Here we are, man. Here we are.
And thanks again for having us on. So, yeah.
It is, perhaps if I may say, not only for the individual that may be relatively new to the region, not even to Cayman, or who may have, whether they've been here for a long time, may have never experienced any significant natural disaster, in particular hurricane. But even those of us who've been here all our lives, whose ancestral roots go back generations, sometimes we may become inadvertently complacent. We may say, well, it's not that bad. I mean, yeah, we heard about the Territory storm. Yeah, Ivan was bad, Paloma was bad. But look at the people, and it's great. Our people have great resilience. We have a great sense of community. But in the event something does transpire, we need to be prepared.
Absolutely.
So, well, Mr. Boxall and then Mr. Simms. Preparation is key.
Yes, preparation is key, and also for us understanding the risk, because like you say, I think some people we know will kind of hold on to what they went through maybe, and then they'll think that's the worst that they can see. So we'd love to know, what the impacts would be from the waves before we get hit, or the impacts from the surge, or even understand the flooding we're seeing right now. And flooding can occur from surface flooding, like the rain that we're seeing, but then also we've seen recently the high tides, coming up on people's roads. So, when we have these surge events, it lifts the groundwater up. And so many people experience their septic tanks coming up and things like that. So understanding the risks is very key, so we can plan and prepare and position our critical infrastructure in the right locations going forward. But I think we saw that the businesses that prepared in advance for Hurricane Ivan, the ones that tend to get back up quickest and outcompete their competitors quite often, and some never reopen. Sorry, Sterling.
No man.
And then, of course, people, at the end of the day, we have to prepare for, make sure our elderly are safe, and that our young people and everybody really needs to have a plan.
Mr. Simms, sometimes it's probably a testament to the competency, the commitment, but also the reliability that sometimes the community may take for granted. or garbage collection, for instance. Your team, phenomenal. The annual roadside, cleanup that we have. The idea that the movement from November into what some would say was preparation for the tourist season, now it's much earlier, 6 months or so earlier, because we want to be proactive in the event there's an impending disaster. But that sort of initial sort of clearing and cleaning and removal of debris, but also after the fact, and what we do during the hurricane to secure some of the waste that we have, could make lives a lot worse if we're not serious about what we're doing.
Absolutely, sir. And like, as you mentioned, and Simon did in early parts of our show here, about preparation, and more preparation. For me, I'm responsible I'm the manager for the infrastructure cluster in the NEOC, right? And under the infrastructure cluster, we have damage and economic impact assessment teams. Those are persons who will go out after the passage of a hurricane, and we'll do assessments in the field to see what is damaged, and they will also do economic assessments in terms of value of the damage, because we want to know what's the cost to rebuild. So we have to know what has been damaged and what the cost there is to that. Inside the infrastructure cluster, as well as the initial debris and removal team, which also falls under my remit on a day-to-day rather than just in this, right? But as you mentioned just now, we decided to move the annual bulk waste cleanup to May instead of the usual November, which is closer towards Christmas. Everybody wanted that thing of I should clean my place before Christmas, but then there's a lot of rush behind that. What you don't see is the other things that we are responsible for during that time of year too. As well as a nice program, all of these different things, and it's the height of the tourist season, all these different things. So I decided, look, what better time to do the bulk waste, but rather than just before the beginning of the hurricane season. This is where people need to think about getting out all their the possible items around their homes that can in turn be flying objects during a storm. So, and we just completed that exercise, and we collected 588 tons of waste across the island, which is 588
tons.
I'll tell you what, that's a reduction compared to previous years. This year wasn't as bad. And also under the infrastructure cluster is utilities, which is water authority, and just in case there's a pipe burst or anything, that we have Miss Gelia and her team who are there to get those things sorted, as well as coordinate with CUC just in case, in events of, as we know, religiously, as soon as the passage of a storm, the light poles are coming down in various areas. So, the debris management team would go out and clear those areas, and CUC will come in and restore power to us. And we're also responsible for information, communication, and technology. This is, where we work with off-regs and all those different entities, to get systems back up, so communications can be extended to the community if we're lost, those things. So the infrastructure cluster is a very important cluster. We restore things.
We get it done.
Yeah, once things are damaged, it's our responsibility to bring it back up.
Yeah.
So it's a very busy cluster when things are happening. So we work hand in hand with various entities to get things done.
And as I said in the previous segment, many of the individuals, whether they sit as chair or as a member of the various clusters, they may be public servants in their day-to-day lives, but the interconnectivity and the commitment to the wider community are just a strong indication of that level of public service. With respect to our other guest, Dr. Gelia, as the head of Water Authority Cayman, as Mr. Simms shared, you want to not only make sure that your infrastructure is in place, the water is safe to consume, you interrupt the supply where necessary to ensure that. But then your team, who are also individuals with their individual lives, concerned about their families, you need to manage that their sort of mental state, their physical readiness and preparedness, align with the national objective to ensure the infrastructure is there. And if we don't coordinate all of that, it could become chaotic.
That's true, Dwayne. In fact, the most important thing to remember in an organization is that you cannot get anything done without the people that work for you. So we have to take care and make sure that they're okay, so that they're comfortable to go out and reconnect pipes and to, as CUC, deal with electricity, excuse me, and the fuel. And we, in our organization, we put a high value on awareness for our team. In fact, tomorrow is our hurricane lunch and learn event for our staff. So we will have, raise a lot of awareness. There will be presentations, and we usually provide them with some token that is useful for the hurricane season, and we encourage them to be prepared. Yeah. We want them to be prepared, as well as the organization.
I said it earlier, and I think it is something that we all have heard, to be forewarned, to be forearmed, to knowledge. Mr. Tatum, if I may invite you into our discussion for our listeners, your role, your involvement, how it plays in, and I think if I predict what you might say, I might even have a question, but we'll see.
All right, thank you very much, Dwayne. I guess I can sum up a bit what everyone said already. Is one of my favorite tongue twisters is proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Everybody can use it. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
That's like
it's the 5 P's. Keeps you on your toes. My role specifically is deputy chair of the support services cluster. This was something I started actually during COVID. When most people think of the NEOC, they think of hurricanes, and this is start of hurricane season today. Rain outside reminding us of that. But the NEOC will operate in any national emergency. And the role of the support services cluster is to manage the 5 ESTs underneath us, which include joint communications, continuity of operations for the Cayman Islands government, resource support, economic continuity for the private sector, and then relief aid services. I also chair the EST for relief aid services. I would say this is one of the most important but possibly passive clusters, because it depends on the severity of the event. Some of these clusters may never end up having anything to do, and we hope they don't. Relief aid services in particular, because they manage international aid. When it typically gets to that point, it is a severe event. We are not able or capable at that time of fully taking care of ourselves, and we have to depend on the international community, and we want to make sure that that aid is used efficiently, effectively, and accountably as well. A lot of in my day-to-day role as a civil service, I deal with procurement, and a lot of the standard processes during that process go out the window, for lack of a better term. During an emergency, you've got to move a bit faster.
Prioritizing, right?
Than what the standard process allows. But that doesn't mean you're still not accountable for the actions taken.
Right.
So you may skip a few steps in the essence of time, but you will very likely still be audited.
The post-analysis, right? Auditing,
on that process. So you want to make sure the decisions you made were at least in line with the principles of procurement, though they may not be able to perfectly match the regular process.
All right. And I'll take a cue from you if it's okay, and it's just my intent to ask based on principle only. From 2 perspectives, focusing on the relief aid, as you shared, as I understand, we are at the stage now where we need to ask for international assistance. Chances are international assistance will be offered because we got friends and family globally. We are an important player in the region with global finance, but people generally are helpful when they see their fellow man in need. With that in mind, I'm thinking sometimes, what's the other saying? Pride goeth before the fall. We got to be willing as a people to say, hey, I need a little extra help. The individual who says, I can't push the scarpet by myself, can you help me? But so too is the corporate body, from the civil servant to the politician and reach out. So to what extent in our training do we say at what point will trigger that request to whomever to facilitate the receipt of, for want of a better word, relief aid?
Well, a big part of that is obviously having these things in place well before the storm hits. Being a British overseas territory does have its benefits. So they do provide a lot of that aid. They will station, ships in the region, that sort of thing. One of the key things about relief aid services, a lot of people may picture, handing out tarpaulins and these sort of things, but there's also a lot of services that may be necessary as well. So it's the process of managing people. Under that particular EST are entities like the Port Authority and Customs, because what you may think is a standard transaction, bringing equipment into the Cayman Islands, that typically goes through paper-based or even electronic process in terms of, what's there. Do duties need to be paid? Where is it going to be stored? We need to work with these entities to streamline that whole process. So it's normally we will work in tandem with the other ESTs, like the infrastructure, for instance. They'll do a report in terms of damage assessment, and then that'll allow us to determine what aid needs to be rendered, whether that is goods, services, or a combination of both. But that's normally not known until after the fact, what necessarily is needed, but we will have a wide array of services at the ready, should they be needed.
All right. And again, speaking to Principal, I think this is where more information, more of us being cognizant of what may transpire, and perhaps believing that we need to be informed right then before it happens. If things are unfolding, as you said, real time, you may not have the luxury of going through the channels and having the 2 weeks to process. You need probably 20 minutes if you're lucky, but there's going to be a post-analysis, the audit that comes with that premise. The distribution of the received goods in any jurisdiction, regionally or globally, whether it's during a natural disaster or just development, we see allegations of favoritism. We see all these things that happen. We hear it in the news, or we listen to the Third World song and we get the picture. How are we ensuring that those supplies that come in get to where they need to go as they need to go?
Well, one of the benefits that we have is something called the Web EOC, which is a system that allows us to log a lot of these things in real time. Right. So as requests come in for aid, that is logged. We understand the volume of aid that's needed, who's approved it, these sort of things. So I think just individuals knowing that the requests are logged, there's no way to change those logs, these type of things really help people act in the way that they should act. Obviously it will depend on the location the aid is needed, the type of aid that's needed, but I think the fact that we have the NEOC in place, and the training that they've provided in terms of the use of what they call JESIP, which is the Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Program. It's a system for managing these types of emergencies, and it allows us to work. So like I said, this is just one cluster of many. I think it's a total of 5 or 6. I don't want to get this wrong. 5, if you include operational cluster. So we're not working in silos. We don't make that decision at relief aid services level as to who gets what and how much. It is really based on the damage and the need assessment to justify where that relief aid goes. And I really appreciate that. Not wish to monopolize your time, but understanding sometimes the discussions that unfold in the community. If I may ask of you just a bit more. We noticed after Hurricane Ivan that we all have, I keep saying, friends and family globally who just want to help. They can send in a generator, they can send down other stuff. And in sort of that environment where you've got, family overseas who've gone to their place wherever they are and they want to send you back a care package for whatever, that may have not just chocolate but a gen set. Those private sort of presentations to the community, to the individual, when there's a national disaster, whether it's a hurricane or otherwise, is that part of this thing? And we're looking at whether it's a port, airport or seaport,
and then the people receiving that and the processing and the clearing and all those things, sometimes there could be a bit of a challenge as well to the national agenda. How does that affect it?
If it is a private, family to family sort of transaction, we wouldn't typically get involved. Obviously, that helps with resources because that's one less family or individual that now the relief aid may need to go to. But it's not something, as I'm aware currently, that is tracked or really supported at NEOC level. That would really be up to what condition the infrastructure is in to receive that, if they can even get it on island. But not really something NEOC would deal with on a smaller scale, person to person like that.
And then again, looking regionally as well as internationally, we use the euphemism, security keeping, but we see some regions, even here, we've been told that our personnel have been seconded to assist with, safety operations. So the presence of a military-like operation, whatever we term that, patrolling the streets and whatever resource, armed with whatever, equipment that they may have, that may be unfamiliar to some of us. It may be every day for the rest of us just going to school. How does that play in? And I'm thinking back not only to the human resource cluster, but you have these support services. Does that come into play in the considerations under your cluster?
It definitely does. So the regiment has a wide range of equipment that they've purchased, as well as a wide range of staff and capability. So one of the clusters under this, one of the ESTs under this cluster is resource support, which does deal with the deployment of equipment and supplies and personnel throughout the island as necessary. So they definitely will play a role. They support, I would say they're one of the entities that support more or less every cluster as and when needed.
Right.
So we don't have exclusive claim to them, though sometimes I wish we did. To really put that force behind us, but they have been helpful in the past for other storms. I think it was Grace, tropical storm / hurricane.
What were the politicians called? Young hurricane?
young hurricane. They were instrumental in getting people out of flood-prone areas and that sort of thing. So they have been helpful.
So before I ask Mr. Simms to be back in, Mr. Taylor, can I ask you more? Again, just internationally, we see the optics, as my friends in media talk about, then we understand the geopolitical landscape. An agency, an international agency or another government may provide assistance because you're in need of it, and then the so-called strings attached. Any potential consideration that maybe a friendly government, an international agency, hey guys, we see you're in need of this, they're going through, or do they need to go through the proper diplomatic channels to ensure that the donating agency with the intended resource is then received by us, and we're not just pawns in the proxy war, so to speak?
Obviously we always want to go through proper channels, especially if it is in relation to relief aid, because that is, like I said, the key role of the relief aid EST is to coordinate all efforts in relation to that. So that includes how it is received, where it is stored, how it is distributed, and how all of that is recorded. If there's something on inventory that we can't figure out where it came from, that's not great. If there's something in inventory that we don't know where it is, that's not great. We're happy to accept all relief aid that comes through the proper channels.
Thanks. Mr. Simms, the idea that, like anything, you're making a post-analysis, and in this case, on your cluster, the damage and economic assessment, you want to make sure, let me back up. Are you looking at the buildings as well to say this is structurally sound building? Are you looking at the systems, for argument's sake, in the financial services sector, that the banks are able to provide their services not only internationally, but to the local community relative to transacting business?
Yeah, we do. When you think of infrastructure, you think of not just roads and utilities, also building structures, everything, because you want to make sure that those buildings are sound and can be occupied in short order. Or if they're not occupiable, then we want to make sure that people are aware that access cannot be gained in those sort of scenarios.
Okay.
So definitely.
May I then ask, we can probably see it much easier in schools or school ancillary buildings like their halls being used for shelters, so that after the passage of a hurricane, for instance, since we are in the start of the hurricane season, that building now is not going to be utilized for this thing because we need it urgently for this interim period for this thing. What about private sector buildings or other structures in the community? Playfield might be a good staging area to do water distribution. One of the banks that really, you know what, we don't need your bank. The building is a good place to, just for argument.
No,
Does your
I don't think we'll extend that far.
Next government.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some provisions for that on the emergency, but you know that's not something that we definitely want to get into. We're more looking at securing public buildings and so on for public access and use.
And I really appreciate you clarifying that, because we know in other jurisdictions their federal emergency management structure presumably can allow, once they go through the requisite sort of declarations, to say, nope, that building, that space becomes this for now. We don't necessarily have that capacity as yet. Not yet. Mr. Vauxhall.
But we do, have pre-identified relief distribution sites across the islands, and the volunteer agencies, if we get these groups coming in from overseas that want to volunteer, typically they'll come through the NEOC, that's what we hope, and then they'll be working with Robert, and then volunteer agencies, obviously that's pulls together all the volunteers, so we get an idea from Richard's which areas are impacted, what parts of the economy are damaged. As we saw in the pandemic, the tourism sector was quite mostly hit because they weren't working. So we size up the economic impacts and then hopefully get the relief goods to the people that need it most. In the very beginning, typically, it's just like we just try to get food out and water out as quickly as we can, because we're not too worried, about making sure it goes to the right person in that first day or two. We want to just keep people alive.
Yes.
And then, then it'll get a bit more systematic after that. But these sites are very important. You probably want to break.
Yeah, one of the things I want to make sure to mention here, Dwayne, is that
just invite. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Across the island, we have identified certain areas for debris management within each district in the event of a storm. So, because there can be points where the island is cut off in certain areas. So we have identified locations, which we will be publishing those locations, so that in the event of a storm, people know where to put their debris. Instead of taking it to the landfill where you may not have access to get to.
Yeah.
So, we've identified several spots across islands within each district where you can actually...
Can I ask through you, sir, because I think this is where we as the wider community maybe don't always appreciate the negative impact we can have on not just each other, but our own individual health. So we've got debris, let's just say it's the trees in our yard, and we just want it out of the yard because we don't like how it looks, and we dump it here. But that impediment for the passage of emergency vehicles or facilitating the recovery.
Yep.
And then sometimes it may not be just the trees, it may be other stuff. We want it out of sight, out of mind once it's not in our space. How can we appeal to us as the wider community? And I say this not to offend, but I want us to be serious about it. Be considerate, be responsible, and to appreciate that what you do, how will that potentially negatively impact the recovery, the survival, the safety, the overall well-being of not just your neighborhood and your neighbors, but the country.
Yeah. Hence the reason why we started the bulk waste.
Yes, sir.
and if you remember, we encourage people to trim it's a good time to trim their hedges and their trees, and we would come by and collect the vegetative waste. So because we recognize the importance of these things, because you may have a nice tree in your yard for 20 years, but it hangs over to your neighbors. Or it might be such a height that if a storm was to come by, it blows over to your neighbors and damage their home, right? So, this is why during the bulk waste cleanup, we were trying to emphasize with people that, listen, out of abundance of safety for yourself and your neighbor and your neighborhood, right? Because, we have some people who have nice trees right at the edge of the fence, but it sticks out on the road.
Yeah.
And if anything happens during a hurricane, then we have to think about, okay, the trees now in the roadway, obstructing it for us to conduct proper safety search and rescue operations. So, absolutely, we have to think about our neighbors. We have to think about the neighborhood, and access is there too. So, yes, I would encourage people, and also take the time to remind you that, it's also an offense on the public health law if you don't, keep your trees nicely trimmed, and if it's hanging over into somebody's yard, it can be considered as nuisance as well. So.
Thanks for and this is where a little bit of knowledge. We may not be malicious. We must be ill-informed. Okay, so after our break, Dr. Gelia will welcome you back into the discussion. They say water is life and life is in the water. Well, maybe we can talk about that some more. Okay. Please rejoin us after the break.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And again, thanks to HNCI and to Mr. Simon Boxer in particular for allowing us to have this annual discussion at the start of every hurricane season. So, Simon, thanks very much, man. And I'm asking us as a populace individually or within our families, but as a community collectively to see what we're doing to ensure that not only we considerate, but we also openly concerned and, complement what is happening through our commitment to ensure that there's a competent, response in our citizenry. Dr. Gelia, if I may, through you, we look at value of certain things, our bank accounts, the gold, but water everywhere, not a drop to drink. We're on an island, and God forbid we can't get potable water, or we have and own a limited supply, or maybe we don't have as much because we weren't serious about storing it properly. Now it's destroyed. Your job and your team at Water Authority becomes probably a little bit more difficult.
Yes, it is, and of course, we take our responsibility very seriously, and we want to encourage the community to also do their part to ensure that they can be responsible for their own resources for water. One of the things we like to do, especially this time of the year, is to remind our customers, and excuse me, I got a bit of a frog in my throat.
Have some lime.
I got a frog here too. Yeah, sorry. We like to remind our customers that are connected to the pipe system to make sure that they have shut-off valves, and if they're going to leave their home for going to a shelter or leaving the island for any particular reason, that they turn it off. That means if they have a tree uproot their pipeline from the meter to their house, they don't have to worry when we start to reconnect. Although our plan also calls for a lot of checks. So we would try to catch those issues.
Okay.
But it's one of the few things that we remind our customers. We also want to remind them to ensure that they have storage of water, because if the storm is severe enough, we will shut down the distribution system. And the reason for shutting down the distribution system is to ensure that we have water available in the aftermath. We those of us here, I don't know if you were if you were young enough, but Ivan,
she's not the one to stop either.
A lot of some of our main lines are along coastal roads that are known to get gouged out, and we have some dramatic photos of our mains in East End, along breakers and parts of Peace Bay, Modern Town. So what it means is that if those lines are broken so severely, it takes a long time, or it takes physical work to put them back together again. So, we have a priority list and we have all of that in place, but we want to want our customers to be prepared. So make sure you have water stored, and I know from our colleague here, Mr. Robert, that they also will source things like bottled water, etc.
Yeah.
And there's also the trucking company here. There's arrangements with NEOC and them to provide water at different locations if necessary.
Right.
So those are just some of the few things that customers need to do.
If I may ask then, and for our listeners, we will take the 2 o'clock break for the news. Dr. Gelia, you reference, have your customers, if they're leaving, turn off their water supply on their side. My father always tells us it's a good practice if you're going to be away from your home, going to the back for the weekend, camping back, turn off your toilet, turn off your water.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Many of us do that. Some was, no big deal, we'll leave it on. So we shut off the supply on our end. Those are connected to the pipe so that when it comes through, it doesn't flow on our side. Would you also want your customers to notify you, hey, we're going to be out of town, for the next month, the next week, during this passage? Or is that helpful at all?
We have over 20,000 customers.
They could come in one by one in person. No.
Quite a bit of a thing. That's personal responsibility for the customers. But like I said, if during the restoration process, we will do our best, to look at meters and see if they're running and turn them off, once we've restored the service.
Mr. Tatum, we saw many of us doing Ivan. Those of us that are old enough to remember. Sorry, Dr. Gelia.
I did the math. I was 12 during Ivan. But I was in the brack, so I barely knew it passed.
Okay, so we'll do the math and figure how old he is now. Hey, don't let his age, out of the mouths of babes. The youth shall lead us. The scriptures are where the gentleman has great intellect and great wisdom. But I haven't taught us that, at least me, that what my father says is actually wise. I confess, I love water. In the sea, if it's raining now, I'll go outside if I could. And when I shower, I want water. I want water pressure. But one of my brothers said, Guy, you only need a teaspoon sometimes to bathe. You don't need a pond. You don't need a sea. So in your procurement and trying to ensure that just easy numbers, the 100,000 people that live here, and you need X gallons per people, statistically, you can't have 10 gallons for everybody. Next thing you know, you got 1 million gallons, and where are we going to put it? So the individual responsibility as well as the resource allocation, there's just more logistics for you to have to navigate, you and your team.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's a joint effort. And when I say joint effort, I don't mean just among NEOC. It's a joint effort between the government and the private individuals. The more you prepare as an individual, the less you have to depend on the government. And almost everybody I know would prefer to have to never depend on the government. Everyone wants to be self-sufficient.
Right.
So definitely encourage everyone to utilize the HMCI resources. They give you a very good list of items to take in terms of quantities as well, for how long to be prepared, because as Simon mentioned earlier, in the immediate aftermath, there is it takes a bit of time to do an assessment to determine where that need is most prevalent, and we need to get that data back to then address those needs. And in that time, you want to have some level of self-sufficiency. But yeah, we definitely encourage everyone to take a look at those resources and make sure you're as prepared as possible, so that by the time we get to you, you're not in any sort of emergency predicament.
And I think many of us can easily recall what our parents told us, that their parents told them, that their parents told them. You never want to behold anybody, not to the government. You want to be as self-reliant, self-sufficient. No man is an island, fair enough. But like Ivan, Grand Cayman may have taken the brunt, but we have the other 2 islands as a country that serves as a resource, but also needs to be considered. Paloma came along and showed us the reverse. Reminds us of how important for us to be our brother's keeper. that we're interdependent, interconnected. As we go into the break, if you wish, we could ask and answer it after. In that planning and preparation, you're not just looking at one part of the country or one island. You have to consider all three.
That is correct, and I'm from the BRAC. I'd probably get strung up if I didn't mention them as well as Little Cayman.
You said it 3 times now, so you're from the BRAC?
Just making sure, that gets across.
I respect that, man.
So yeah, it isn't a prepare in Grand Cayman and hope for the best in the sister islands. I think Mr. Simms pointed out a good point as well earlier, where you take great care in choosing their locations. Well before the storm, you know where you have access to. The storm will determine typically which of those access points you actually can use, where you can get access to, whether that's road access, whether there's electricity in certain locations, whether there's a backup generator at those locations, things like that. We take all this into consideration when selecting those locations, what to stock them with, that sort of thing. So it's definitely not a Grand Cayman effort. Put it that way. It takes a village. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right. So we have the news break. When we come back, invite you to share with us some more. I thank our listeners, and I pray that we are attentive and that we're not becoming fearful, but through this information and education, we become more positioned, more confident that we can be responsive in an appropriate manner. All right. Join us after the break. Simon will sing a song. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
The Cayman Islands Customs and Border Control Service, CBC, repatriated 4 migrants to Republic of Cuba on Monday. The men were accompanied by Customs and Border Control officers and left Grand Cayman on a non-chartered Cayman Airways flight just before 7 p.m. Additional repatriation flights will be arranged as processing continues. In international news, days away from a default crisis, the U.S. Senate dashed on Thursday to wrap up work on a debt ceiling and budget cuts package that have overwhelmingly cleared a House vote, aiming to send it to U.S. President Joe Biden's desk to become law before the fast-approaching deadline. Passage in the Senate will require cooperation between Democrats and Republicans, much the way the narrowly divided House was able to approve the compromise late Wednesday night. Fast action is vital if Washington is to meet next Monday's deadline, when Treasury has said the U.S. will start running short of cash to pay its bills, risking a devastating default. Meanwhile, the United States on Thursday announced sanctions against a group of Iranian and Turkish people and firms accused of plotting to assassinate former U.S. government officials, dual U.S. and Iranian nationals, and dissidents. The sanctions against them block all access to their U.S. money and property and prohibit Americans and American firms from working with them. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
Cayman Queens. Your nails say everything about you without saying a word. The Nail Palace, upstairs Tropical Plaza, Smith Road. Turning manicures, acrylics, pedicures into an art. Nails are not about being noticed. They're about being remembered. Book your appointment today, 526-1217, or visit them on Instagram, Nail Palace 345. The Nail Palace, upstairs Tropical Plaza on Smith Road. Great nails don't happen by chance. They happen by appointment. The Nail Palace, 526-1217.
Things come up. That's life. But it doesn't mean I can't show up. From a runny nose, stubbed toes, to earache woes, headaches, backaches, and tummy aches. When things come up, Best Health Pharmacy over-the-counter solutions get you back in the game. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor. Best Health Pharmacy, your health, your convenience is their priority. Best Health Pharmacy also offers free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358.
Talk today. But I do have some question. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks again to the wonderful, panelists we've had every year and this year in particular, and to Mr. Simon Boxall, Mr. Richard Simms, Robert Taylor, and Dr. Gelia. Thank you very much, because as I see the various clusters and see the sort of interdependence, but the interplay, and then the wider community on all three islands being affected, and what we're doing and saying. So, Simon, as we look at this discussion, talk to us, because I want to know what should we be doing. Many times we hear something, but we're not listening.
No, or we leave it the last minute.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think the advice: trim back your trees if you can, because if it falls on the wires, it's going to take longer to connect it.
Mm-hmm.
Get the water, Miss Gelia suggested. That's critical.
What's that song you want to sing during the break, man?
Sing it again. We got these preparedness kits to give away, but they got a lot of these preparedness items in there. But obviously, people know about. I mean, they experienced it at Grace. The power went out. You need a flashlight, and it could go out for a while. The taps stopped putting water out for a little while. We were lucky. So obviously the water, non-perishable food, but I always worry about the sea coming up.
Yeah.
The surge, that's the one that's...
So, Simon, if I can ask you about the preparedness kits, two things. What is in this, and then what maybe we should have in our kit, but what is in the kits that you have?
I don't know exactly. We got from different hardware stores they sponsored. So this one is from Uncle Bill's, and I'm looking at it. There's all sorts of great things. Maybe I should put it up on my lap so people can see it.
No worries, man. But generally speaking, then maybe in my preparedness kit of all the other things, the first aid, I'm gonna have some chocolate, right? And so, Simon,
it's a mattress. There's an umbrella. The batteries are always good.
Okay.
We got some batteries here. Wow, that's a useful thing. A propane stove. You're gonna want that if you want some hot food or a cup of coffee.
Just need to learn how to cook now.
Yeah, there's a little gas cylinder on that. What's this? This is a poncho. You could have used that today. I mean, my trouser leg coming over to your studio.
A top? Or is that a crooked sack?
Yeah, that looks like that's probably for land crabs. I think. Yeah, that's a crocus sack.
Little lantern?
Yeah, or probably for hauling coconuts and things.
You got the Richard?
Nice. A little fan.
With a light?
I don't know if it's a hand crank fan or whether you need a generator.
No, I think that's when you got to talk to it. It's heat generated, so you talk to it.
Battery operated. So let's find out who the winner is for this puppy. Can we pull a winner? Who do you want to, maybe, Richard, are you going to pull that one?
We nominate Mr. Simms. All in favor? Aye.
Pull one out of there. Just rip it in the hole. I hear they gave away 6 winners, though, for the A.L. Thompson kit. Now,
three.
What are you doing to me? I'm going to be in so much trouble now trying to figure that out.
No worries, man. No worries. Come on, Mr. Simms.
Just one. What if we just shake it?
And Mr. Simms finds his way into the corner as he goes inside. He gets a ticket.
Fine, please.
Okay. Put on your glasses, man. Don't be like me. Wear your glasses.
Yeah, you get the glasses. What do you got?
Let's see who the winner is.
Susan Watson.
Mr. Tony Parsons.
Tony Parsons, you're a winner. Well done.
Who's over there? It's behind you.
It's behind me? Tony.
No, it's that one. I'm just teasing you.
Tony Parsons, lucky winner.
Excellent. So we'll pull another winner in a little while. I guess we get back to the serious stuff.
And thanks, Uncle Bills. That's a wonderful.
Isn't that some great stuff?
Yeah, that's
some really useful things. I mean, you don't have to go all out. I always say just start with a 5-gallon bucket with a lid. Just throw a couple of cans of food in there and some bottled water. Start somewhere.
On open cans.
Do something, but don't do nothing.
All right.
You know, get going. Now's the time to start.
Well, listen.
No, I don't know. Do you ready for...
you want to do another?
Robert could do the other one. Yeah, what about this one from Kirk's? No, you can't give away any more from... That's the problem I got in the
No worries, Sam.
Can you grab this kit here? Make kind of a big
Now we'll
song
see
and
what happened
dance.
in
We
the last-
really
Okay.
appreciate those
So-
hardware stores. You know they give them away.
Yeah,
to
we
us for
thank this is the community spirit. and
Stepping
they're
up.
giving- Does it come with the container as well?
Yeah, and it's got a lid.
Okay.
The lid came off the cooler.
So
lid.
reusable container.
What's in this one?
They can use
You
that
need your
for,
microphone. Tell them what you got.
Okay.
They can use the container for recyclable items.
There you go.
That's
all right. Mr. Tatum, do you want some help, sir?
Think I got it figured out.
All right.
All right. So this is the giveaway from Kirk Home Center.
All right.
We have a lantern, some batteries, and 2
boxes.
Look like battery-powered high-speed fans. Those will come in handy.
Bunch of batteries.
What's the CFM of those fans, Mr.?
That would be further for the winner to determine. I can't change that now.
They could read this.
All right, let's see who we have.
Little drum roll. Somebody's going to be a winner.
I think Dr. Julia did piano, not drum.
And the winner is Kelsey Wilson.
Kelsey, look at you. Well done. I had a feeling you were going to be a winner. You just looked like a winner when you walked in that day. Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful opportunity.
It is.
When you get the prize package from the chocolate box, I'll draw that one.
What are we going to do? Get Miss Gelia? That's a heavy kit.
All
This
right.
last one. Have you got time? Or we got to go?
No, we are at we have time. If
So Richard
I'll
can do it
describe
right there.
all right. Wow, this is what
Seriously
steel brackets are
heavy
made of good stuff, you know. That's a nice box,
That's a
man.
real nice one.
I like the colors, you know,
Yellow
caterpillar colors. All right, so to our listeners, we're
big caterpillar.
Yeah. I Tonka truck when I was small, man. And we're very grateful to the corporate partners who have, you know, provided such a good start to the. So this is from Costless. So we had Uncle Bill's, Kirk's Home Center, and now Costless. And Dr. Gelia draws the winner. I think it's Norman McField, but let's just see if it comes. No, not Norman, not Susan.
Some crazy good stuff in this thing too. Bottled water.
Ria Bonza.
You sure it's not Rihanna from Barbados?
Bonzoa. Ria Bonzoa.
Ria Bonza.
And there's a telephone number on there.
Yeah, let's keep that one
All right,
secret
so,
though. But
and Mr. Vauxhall, your office will contact the
reach
winners.
out to you.
Okay.
We're not sure. We're going to probably have to determine who was the first out of all the people that
We'll
they
fix that, sir. Don't stress.
Don't
worry.
stress it?
No
Let that
stress.
go.
Nah, I'll take them all. Don't worry. Don't stress, sir. Don't worry. You know, Bob Marley said, "Don't worry." You know.
Did you see some nice stuff in there before we go though? They did have some pretty good stuff, right? Paper
You pick it up, and then Mr.
bottled
Simms
water.
or Mr. Vauxhall will name it. It'd be like pretend that you are, you know.
There's definitely a top in there. I can see
One
it
of
from
those
here.
Yeah.
Bottled water. Look
The
at that.
waters.
Boy, you're going to appreciate that if the water doesn't.
Boy.
What's that?
What's that?
Speaker. Wow.
Well, that's for listening to talk today.
Yeah. That's an important thing to have
Right.
battery operated.
Okay, Simon, you announce it while Mr. Tatum brings it up. Right?
Okay,
He can be.
we've got
you can
another-
be the
right,
pass
right.
jack to his one away.
Speakers, flashlights, duct tape.
Use that wisely.
Mm-hmm. It's like Christmas morning for some of these guys, man.
Kind of is. These
And not even July.
Your butter. Oh, you have
You got some Vienna sausages?
Vienna sausage,
This
yes.
might not be in there when you get it.
Are there saltines to go around, Mr. Tatum?
Oh yes, and salt, a pack of salties is right. That's
Oh, my goodness. Whoa.
They were thinking of
You just
they were
really
thinking
wanted
of
to
you doing.
communicate.
Hey, bro, you can't have sausage with the saltines, you know?
Yeah, they were thinking about you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. All right.
You have a 6-pack of.
There's a 6-pack in there too?
Paper towel.
Paper towel. Nice top.
Nice top, yeah.
Garbage bags are always useful as well.
Yeah, man. And Twizzlers. Oh.
What are they going to use those?
Bungee cords.
So, Mr. Boxhall, use your imagination. I mean, you'll be knocking out.
That's to secure the top. That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, for hooking the top down.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
All right. So when we come back from the break, do you have more gift prizes, Mr. Boxhall?
I wish.
You wish?
The well's run dry right now. Sorry about
Don't worry, man. Don't worry, man. The well not gonna run dry.
Make sure that we put the name of that person on that box.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the one
You
from the
put that
back.
one. Don't put it back into it, though. But perfect. Thank you
All right. So
very
when we
much.
come back from the break, Mr. Boxhall, where do you want to take us? We'll be guided by you.
We've got a bunch of caregiver presentations coming up because we want to look out for our elderly. So we want all the caregivers in command to come out to these things.
Okay, so we talk about that after that.
Can we?
Yes, sir. Please join us. And again, thanks to the wider community, but the corporate community, these sort of show of it's important. We'll touch by it. All right, let's pause and join us right after the break.
How can you make a classic BLT sandwich even better? Well, by adding tuna. Wow. The land meets the sea in Subway's new sandwich, the Tuna BLT, available for a limited time. The Tuna BLT is exploding with flavor. Imagine crispy, juicy bacon strips on top of tuna, fresh lettuce, and slices of tomato, topped with your favorite sauce and choice of freshly baked bread. Enjoy the best of both worlds with the Tuna BLT from Subway. Subway, eat fresh.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from May 28th through June 12th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.portercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
Why replace when you can respray? At Granite Express Cayman, we can completely transform your old kitchen cabinets with a fresh kitchen respray for just a fraction of the cost of buying new ones. Big news! Our summer special promo is here. We are offering kitchen countertop specials up to 50 square feet installed for only $1,595 CI for granite and $1,895 for quartz. We can make your dream kitchen come true and at a price to suit all budgets. Call 922-0424 for a free estimate, friendly service, fast installation. Hurry! Limited time only while supplies last. Visit graniteexpresscayman.com.
You deserve a unique vacation this year, one with easy non-stop flights from Cayman. Cayman Airways offers more non-stop flights to and from the Cayman Islands than any other airline. Now you can add Panama and Los Angeles to your travel bucket list. Skip the hassle of connecting flights. Panama is just a 2-hour non-stop flight from Cayman. And Los Angeles? Get there in less than 5 hours non-stop aboard Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com to book your Los Angeles or Panama getaway today.
Hello, parents and guardians. Puberty, relationships, and sex-related topics can be challenging conversations to navigate as a parent, but it doesn't have to be. In celebration of Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month, the Family Resource Center is inviting you to a parenting evening at the Loft Compass Center on Monday, June 5th at 5:30 p.m. Come and learn from health and parenting experts to understand the facts and how to speak to your children about important topics in support of their health and safety. Registration is required. Call 949-0006 or email frc@gov.ky. Refreshments will be provided.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. And our prayer is that we all as a community will be continually attentive and very, very safe, not only during the hurricane season, but any passage of any sort of natural disaster, any disaster of any sort, man-made otherwise. And thanks to Dr. Judy for being part of us. Robert, you and your team, Simon, HNC, together, with Mr. Simms, and as I said, our listeners and viewers will look and see that many, if not all of our individuals today, are public servants in of their own right, but their commitment, their collaborative approach strengthens our community. And I think, as Mr. Tatum reminds us, it's not just about one aspect of the country, whether it's Grand Cayman or one part of it, it's the entire country and the resource, the resilience, the resolve, the sense of responsibility that must be part of our planning. Simon, we can't take it for granted.
No, and you're absolutely right that it's a whole country effort. We can't forget we've got lots of volunteers. We had over 100 people show up for our shelter management training.
Mm-hmm.
They only have like 15 people show up at the one apparently in TCI. So lucky. And so we got over 150. We got the churches. We expect them to also get involved. part of volunteer agencies, the Rotary, Kiwanis, so it's civil servants, like we see around the table, a lot of people, but the sister islands too. And I think you mentioned there was some problems with the phone lines. We were intending to talk to Mr. Mark Tibbetts. The Sister Islands Emergency Committee is kind of a scaled-down version of the NEOC here in Grand Cayman. We work very closely together, typically activate together. And we were just over in the BRAC, actually. Adan, Powell, and Eddie Miller were over there. Every single school, even in Little Cayman, they went over and did presentations. And they met with the senior management teams at each school, reviewed their plans, because they're vulnerable too, obviously. And then met with Mr. Mark Tibbetts to look at the state of the shelters, the readiness of them over there. They're more fortunate than us in that they've got, I think, 50% of their population covered by the shelters. We only have about 8%. So please, going back to it's a joint effort. People, if you can, if you've got a strong home, look out for your fellow man and maybe offer to put them up for those few days or whatever it takes the passage of a hurricane. And particularly the elderly, we're going to be doing a bunch of caregiver presentations soon because we recognize they're vulnerable, so we want to make sure that their care is continued through an impact. We don't want them to be there without water or without food for days at a time and maybe their caregivers somewhere else. So we're going to be doing some presentations. We're going to be offering refreshments and food, certificates for attendance, and we're going to be going to every district.
Okay.
And so we'd invite we're going to make announcements about that later.
And I'm hopeful that despite how busy our lives are, despite that, we may have hired individuals to assist us, but we as the family perhaps can attend along so that we are complement to what's happening.
That's a great point. Thank you for that. Yes, Sterling. I mean, it's difficult. We know as we age, we lose our ability to smell and see and hear and touch even. And so if the power's out, you might end up eating something in the fridge that's not in good condition, get sick. We're not as stable on our feet. You might fall. So you've got to look out for each other. And, very, very much, I think the point that you raised earlier, Robert, that, we're not the sort of society that just provides loads and loads of hands out. We really want people to be self-sufficient as much as possible. Make sure you've got your own supplies of food and water. Obviously, we have the shelters and these things in place, and there'll be some relief distribution if it's needed. But the more people can do, to look out for their elderly people. We know some of them don't want to go into the shelters. Like I said, maybe they're wearing adult diapers, they feel shy and embarrassed or whatever. We're trying to put up privacy screens more now, trying to organize transport through the NEOC, and that's a work in progress. But maybe once the NEOC activated, if you don't want to move an elderly bedbound patient, for instance, to the shelter, it's possible we could take them to another family member's house that's stronger and more secure. But that NEOC phone number, 949-6555, doesn't actually activate till the NEOC opens, but we will announce that probably on your radio station through you.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Simms, as I listen to both what Mr. Tatum and Mr. Boxall shared, I'm going back to this notion that there's a sense of individual responsibility. Mr. Tatum reminded us that as a people, it is almost, inculcated within us, the personal ethos, that we don't wait for government. We organize ourselves, we organize our communities. And I'm thinking that as simple as it may sound, through your daily job, your office reminds us, hey, look at your trees, look at your yard, just your own personal space. What's in that yard? How does that affect? It will aid recovery, but it will also may aid the downtime that we have before we recover.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I just want to say, as we wrap up here, doing prepare, and prepare some more, right?
Yeah.
And as you say, that starts with you as an individual. And, look at your personal space, your properties, again, for those who missed the bulk waste collection, which ended last Friday, here's an opportunity to still look around your premises to see what you can still secure or get rid of. Our drop-off point at the landfill opens 24 hours a day. So there's absolutely no excuse as to say, oh, I don't, didn't have the time when I get off work, but, I can't get to the landfill. It is open 24 hours a day.
Every day?
Every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So, there's no reasonable excuse as to why you can't take your things off and drop them off to the landfill. So this is an opportunity to trim those trees again.
Yeah.
Trim the trees, and like you mentioned earlier, the more obstructions you have around your home, the more difficult it will be to restore your utilities.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about all these things, you got to make sure, okay, if this drops, can water authority restore the lines? If my tree gets up in the wires, can CUC come in and restore power? All these things you have to take into consideration, whether it be for yourself and your neighbors, because we are neighbors keepers, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we all live in the village, so everybody has a responsibility to ensure that you take care of your space, and just prepare. Just be at the ready, because we don't know, and that's the thing. If we all knew when the storm is going to hit and when it's going to come, everybody will bottle on at the time, but we just don't know. Sometimes these storms are coming dead straight at us, then they go off somewhere else, and then you see it spinning somewhere else, all way out in Wonderland, and all of a sudden you hear it's coming to us, right? So just take time out to prepare your space.
We have a question from one of our listeners off air on the WhatsApp, and I read it over again, and I think I got the gist of it. And I guess the analogy is similar to, we can call HMCI to get a template for disaster or management plan for our own. We can get an idea of what a kit should look like in terms of that. The individual, I believe, is also asking, is there an agency, is there a resource that we can reach out to say, do some sort of personal assessment, either in my business or around my property, to consider, well, this needs to be addressed. This is a potential hazard. That tree is too high, or that thing is there. Is there a resource somewhere that people can reach out and to?
No, not to that extent.
Okay. I mean, that's what's being asked, but
but I'm sure people can look around their homes and just see what could be a potential hazard. If you have anything pretty much that are loose, not strapped down, it's going to be a hazard. Because even when you think about your simple as your garbage enclosures, your garbage containers, I'd encourage people to put those inside in the event of an approaching storm. You make sure you clean them. For some people, they're like, oh, I'm not going to put that in my house. But it's your house. It's your garbage. It's your bin. So just clean it out and put it into storage until the passage of the storm, because that could easily, be caught up in the wind and take next door and destroy somebody else's property, or even your own. So, anything that has the potential of flying around, it's a hazard, and you need to secure it.
Coconuts on trees we were reminded of. Yeah. Just thinking to what you said and sort of inferring from what this question was asked. We have, let's say, coconut trees in our yard. We just want to cut the tree down. We just want to take the limbs off. At what point should we look at that tree and say, those coconuts there are an issue? Let's remove them now because the storm is approaching. The day of the storm, the week that we're here is coming.
I would start looking at it now from the beginning of the hurricane season. Okay. Because you may not have the time to get to it when things are approaching, because you're so busy dealing with other things, securing the premises. For those who have shutters, it might be easy. It take you 10 minutes to walk around your house and close your shutters. But for those who don't and need to go and secure plywood, you got to go to the hardware stores, make sure that they have it, and then when if you find it, then who's going to install it? And if you can't get persons to install it, you got to do it yourself. So you can get easily caught up in all those last minute preparation. So you want to look at now, what are your plans? How are you going to deal with how many people you will need to secure your home? So you might want to start talking to family members if you don't have enough persons living in your home. For example, I'm the only guy living in my house, so I have to you rely on the ladies around me. If not, the things that I have to look. Okay, well, where else I can extend to get some assistance from. So all these things have to be thought out now. You can't just wait for approach of a storm before you start to think about these things.
Indeed. Well, as we wrap up our discussion, we'll start with you, Dr. Gelia. Share with as you wish in the salient points that you may want to sort of implore our listeners to be attentive.
Well, I think I just support what Richard has said and what Robert has said before as well. Being prepared is the key. And there's so many different things that you need to do. On the HMCI website, they actually have, I think, a draft of a family plan. So you can go there and, as just your own home or your own business, and have a look and use that as your guide. So the thing is, prepare as much as possible. Deal with those trees. You know, deal with the rubbish around your house, the accumulating stuff. And, you know, make the things like your medication, your pets. You have to just think of almost, well, basically everything. Your personal documents, as all of that. But all of those key things are on plan on the sample family plans that are on HMCI's website. And in terms of water, as said before, you know, you need to be prepared. That is possible that water service will be out. So you need to have sufficient in your own homes. You know, we will do our best to restore service. We also have information on our website. So it's just www.waterauthority.ky. We encourage people to go there as well. Contact us if you have any specific issues at our office, and we will do our best to assist. I think the season has started. It's nice rain and thunder today. So hopefully that encourages everyone to think and get ready.
And congratulations on your significant anniversary celebration as well.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Tatum, sir, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll end how I begin. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. The only other thing I would add to that is if preparation is the vehicle that's going to take us to safety, I would say information is probably the fuel. So make sure, you know, try to sign up for like the HMCI app, for instance, that's going to give you real-time alerts. One of the clusters, one of the ESTs under our cluster is Joint Communication Services. They will give you and provide that real-time information as to where a power line may be down or where power may be out or where there's flooding. And if your plans were to head in that direction, your plans need to be flexible and adaptable to that. If you don't know that's occurring, that itself is a problem. So make sure you've got, you know, maybe some type of access to a battery-powered radio, things like that when you are getting your preparations together. And don't make any assumptions, because I can tell you right now, my wife did some shopping for hurricane supplies, and she assumes that her peanut M&Ms are in there. They are not. So you're going to want to check to make sure your supplies are up to date, not expired, things like that, so that your last minute shopping is truly last minute shopping. You're there to pick up one or two things as opposed to then trying to formulate your entire plan. How much water do I need? Do we have dietary restrictions? For instance, she is on a low sodium diet. Every type of canned food you can think of is relatively high in sodium. Our preparation looks different from another family that may have other restrictions. So to take all that sort of stuff into account.
So proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I like the fact that you referenced, you know, the M&Ms, for instance, because there are certain things that maybe we as an individual may need for our mental health. You know, you pop that M&M in, you get a square of chocolate. Maybe it's just the plain deck of cards just to pass the time. Give you something that occupies you to take your mind off of, you know, the wind and the rain outside. All right. Closing thoughts to you, Mr. Boxall.
Yeah, I thank you again. As always, it's amazing that you bring us on. Gelia recently had, every year they do the preparedness stuff for their staff. They recently picked up, I think, half a box of the hurricane booklets. We'll have those in the racks in the government building and around the place. We do preparedness presentations, not so much for the individuals, but for businesses, churches, NGOs, and government agencies. It's free. Just call us. We'll come. We'll come even at night and that kind of thing. But yeah, our website, www.caymanprepared.ky, has a lot of great stuff. If you've got a boat, you're not sure how to handle that in a hurricane, we'll give you tips on that. The family plan, Miss Gelia mentioned, items that you might want to have in your kit. It's all there. Stuff about the shelters, what to bring, what not to bring. Our Facebook is Cayman Prepared. Instagram's Cayman Prepared. But yeah, just want everybody to be safe and do a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just start. Sometimes it's just taking that first step, doing a little preparedness, whether it's looking around, seeing which trees might fall on your roof, your car, or the wires, and contemplating, how am I going to get those trees trimmed safely because obviously you want to be careful of the wires and things when you're doing that as well. So I think CUC might come out and do it for the first time. So, but thank you, Dwayne, as always.
It's always a pleasure. Thank each of you for joining us. Thank you for your commitment to your respective clusters, your diligence, professionalism, and hopefully as a wider community, we understand that we are indeed a brother's keeper and what we do can affect. So thanks again. I join, Mr. Tatum in praying that this hurricane season will be most uneventful. All right, to our listeners, please join Mr. Art. Come tomorrow morning for the record. Tomorrow on Talk Today, we've got a couple of discussions. Our friends from Cayman Foundation will join us. 1 o'clock, we're going to talk about, the whole notion of how we look at our future-proof in our country and the idea of, our climate policy and the like. That's going to be a discussion that we're looking forward to. All right, stay tuned. Call Miss Susan. You can request any song as long as it's Alabama. No, just kidding. Have a wonderful, safe, and productive afternoon. God's willing. See you tomorrow.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Here is where tradition never dies. This is your radio.